Her hos oss det klart for kveldens Brennpunkt.
En hvit ekstremist sto for det verste massedrapet i Norgeshistorien. Hvor kom ordene og tankene fra som skapte terroristen? Mer demokrati og mer åpenhet, svarte Jens Stoltenberg på angrepene. Hvor fritt ordet etter 22. juli?
We're just normal geezers from normal working class estates who are fed up with the way one government has treated us and another government doing exactly the same, and we're not going away.
Is there any parties in England that kind of
no,
that you think will help the message?
Nothing at the minute, unless there's a new one formed. But there's not. You got Labour, Lib Dem, and Conservative. They're all the same. So they are. They claim to represent the working class. Not one of them have lived in a working class estate or street in their lives. So how do they know what's going on in our streets and our towns whenever they've never even been there?
We've had to form this organisation to give ourselves a voice, because all the politicians just pander to the Islamist vote and to the Islamic community's vote, because of the way they orchestrate and organise themselves through the mosques and the way they block vote. They're a political wing of Islam, the complete ideology. We've had to form something to counter it, to highlight the issues.
But are you a political leader?
I'm not a political leader, no. I'm the leader of a grassroots movement. The problem's getting worse and worse and worse, and we're not solving the problem by building more mosques and bigger mosques and letting the hate get preached across the entire country. It's not solving the problem. We're not even starting to address the problem. First of all, we've got to stop building mosques, we've got to stop Islamic immigration, at the least, until it can sort itself out.
But you're not a racist?
I'm not a racist, no.
What's the difference then? To explain.
What race is Islam? What race are Muslims? It's not a race, it's an ideology. It's a fascist ideology. Islamism and Nazism are opposite sides of the same coin. They're identical. They're fascist. We're doing this for the love of our country, the love of our culture, the love of our community. People say we do it we promote hatred. Everything we do is not out of hatred, it's out of love. Love for Christianity, love for our culture, love for our way of life. And that's it, and love for our freedom. And the more Islam, the less freedom. That's what we're seeing.
Vi reiser til London og møter Matthew Collins. Han har selv tidligere vært høyreekstremist og nynazist. Derfor vet han hva han snakker om. I dag har han en ledende jobb i den antirasistiske stiftelsen Searchlight. Han arbeider med overvåkning og avsløring av høyreekstremistmiljøer i England.
I didn't understand the changing world. I didn't understand the country I lived in. I didn't understand where my poverty came from. I didn't understand anything. I found in the extreme far right an answer to everything, which was to reject it, hate it, violently confront it, and therefore I wasn't confronted by it. I spent all that time, 6 years of my life involved in a violent confrontation against society, a violent confrontation against people I didn't know, based almost entirely on the colour of their skin. 6 years, from 15 to 21. What did I know about anything? Thankfully, someone came along and told me. They filled my head up with racism, they filled my head up with fascism, they filled my head up with Nazism. How did a 15-year-old boy born in 1972 on a council estate in South London end up with a poster of Adolf Hitler on his wall? The fascists rely on what's called the big lie. They go to a community, start a big lie and watch it spread. In my case, it was the evil Jews and the evil blacks. Breivik's case is that he needed people to rise up against Islam and communism. There is no Islamic communist conspiracy. The English Defence League here, it started off talking about Christian rights, the rights of Christians against Muslims, not the traditional whites against Pakis, as we used to say, or whites against blacks or whites against immigration. It firmly set itself up as a defender of the Christian faith, even though none of these people are traditionally Christian people. The EDL is the largest social movement in this country at the moment. it's also the most dangerous and the most extreme.
Breivik, in this sense, how do you see him in this picture?
Well, Breivik is one of those people that would have sort of looked at what the EDL were doing, putting thousands and thousands of people on the streets, ready to have confrontation, out on the street in violent confrontation with the police and with authorities and against the government. He looked at that and he was inspired by the EDL. He felt he was one of those people that looked at what the EDL were doing and he felt, this is it, this is the confrontation. There are people ready to take up and act violently against Islam. But Breivik, of course, wrote a number of things that were pro-EDL and anti-EDL, because after a while Breivik obviously grew tired of the EDL. And this person, Breivik, believed in this growing conspiracy theory as well that there is an Islamic and communist conspiracy, that Islamists and Marxists work together somehow to dominate worldviews. Now, we're looking at former football hooligans, not Christians, but people who have that, if I have to describe myself, I'm a Christian. And people that suddenly moved away from hating immigrants and hating people because of their colour. It's like a knee-jerk response because they see the growth of Islam. So then they say that they're protecting Christian values. And this has all been driven by this evangelical, extremist Christianity that's been prevalent in Europe now for a few years. We've had it in America for a long time. If you look at very, very conservative thinkers in America, who you would have thought being conservative thinkers would have looked at them in disgust, they saw in the EDL this plan they had for some kind of crusading force to drive out Islam. And what we have in the language and the actions of the EDL, no matter how they dress it up and how they try to present themselves, they are the foot soldiers of religious extremists. They are the foot soldiers of people in America.
Det lite som vittner om fredelige demonstranter når English Defence League inntar gatene I London-bydelen Tower Hamlets. Vi vet at både Norwegian og Swedish Defence League kommet for å delta. Lederen Tommy Robinson ute på prøve og har ikke lov å lede demonstrasjonen. For å unngå å bli oppdaget av politiet har han kledd seg ut.
And you still have the cheek to call us racist. Rabbi Benjamin Kinnaman, give this man a warm welcome, thank you.
You know how long I've been waiting to take this shit off? There are thousands of Islamist lunatics running around the streets of East London These streets of East London do not belong to paedophilic Muslim gangs. The East End of London belongs to Londoners. It belongs to Cockneys. It does not belong. And the Islamic community will feel the full force of the English Defence League if we see any of our citizens killed, maimed or hurt on British soil ever again. A lot of people like to say, am I getting arrested for my democratic right? Come and arrest me. What are you doing? Everybody just stop
Bare store politistyrker hindrer fullstendig kaos denne dagen. Det var tydelig at mange fra EDL gjerne ville slåss. Tommy Robinson ble til slutt arrestert.